So, first thing we're going to talk about is the perm setup. You should have your perm rods out. Perm rods come in all different sizes. Okay, so you have, even though they're all different size widths wise, these are all the same length. These are your half rods. They're the same width as these, as their partners, but they're shorter. So they're for the small little nape area, the small spots that we can't get a hold of. All of your perm rods, whether they look like this or whether they look like this, have openings in them. These have wider openings, these have little dots here. That's to allow the solution to get through once we wrap it and penetrate. The solution penetrates all the layers, okay? Each of your perm rods, if you look at them closely, have some lines here on each of the ends. Then it has a little bit more bubbles, ripples, and then it's a little smooth, and then you have your centerpiece. So when we measure to take our sections for permanent waving, we're going to use our rod, okay, and to measure. Some clients have a really small head, so when we measure, we're going to measure inside here. Some clients have a bigger head, so when we measure those for sectioning, we're going to go here. It's just like with rollers. You don't want the hair to cover the whole end of the rod, because then the solution's not going to penetrate properly, the hair's going to fall off, your tension's not going to be equal, okay? So you want to have a little bit less hair on the rod than the size of the rod. Make sense? Okay. You're going to need 9 sectioning clips. When we section our first section, we're going to comb the hair straight back, and we're going to use our rod. Now, you're not going to roll this on your client's nose, but you're coming right into the center of the head. So you're going to place it there, and you're going to follow the tip of your comb. I'm going to assume that her head's a little bit bigger until I make my first section. And I'm going to come right where the bubbles are, straight back, place my rod right there. See how it's coming off the edge? Hold it here, straight back, comb it away. So I should be able to successfully put a rod all the way here into the apex. I'm going to take my rod and I'm going to measure it sideways. So I still need to leave that edge there, and I'm going to measure it back, and right where my edge would be here, I'm going to take my comb and make my part. So my first section should be a nice little square. My rod should fit this way, my rod should fit this way, and my rod should fit this way. Okay, that's your first section. I'm just going to clean it up a little bit. Now, when we do perm rods, you want clean, neat sections. They have to be clean and neat. If they're not, your perm rod, your perm processing portion of your perm is going to be off a little bit. You're not going to get a nice even curl all the way down. Notice that I am using my rat tail comb, not my pintail comb. This is the only comb that you use for permanent waving. You're not using anything else. You're not using a styling comb or an all-purpose comb. You're using this. Where one section ends, the next section begins. So I'm going to come to the side of my head, and I'll do it over that side for you guys. On a straight line on a round object is a curve, so I'm kind of curving my hair a little bit when I comb it. Where one ends, the next one begins. So this is my next section. I'm going to put my hand behind the ear. I'm going to take it right at the top of that section and slightly curve it till I meet my finger. Couple things you have to think about. You see how the hairline goes in and out? So I need to make sure that a rod can fit nicely all the way down. What I don't want to happen is I don't want this side to be longer than this. So I have a little bit extra hair here. I need to cut that off. And then I'm going to check. I'm going to check and make sure that my ride, and I'm going to use a different ride just so you know that they're all the same length. Here, that matches. I'm going to take a piece of that out and check. Make sure I didn't get too wide as I curved it down. I'm a little bit wide here, so I need to take a little bit of this off. And it's trial and error when you're making your partings. This is a basic perm wrap. This is a 9-section wrap. And back in the day, in the Stone Ages, when I went to state board, you had to do a 9-section perm wrap at your state board at practical exam. So I'm just going to keep coming down my section and making sure my perm rod fits. Take my next section, and I'm just checking myself. And I fit. And when you section for perms and you wrap this up, this is going to come nice and tight. You don't want any loose ends hanging out. You don't want them sticking out all over the place. It's got to be wrapped nice and tight. Now I'm going to do the same thing, and I'll do it on this side so you guys can see. Straight line on a round object is a curve, so I'm going to kind of make that into like a C shaping. Where one section ends, the next one begins. I'm going to put my comb right at that point, put my finger behind the ear, and curve that down a slight C. Comb this hair away, and start my measuring. And now I'm going to measure with the white rod. So they're all the same length, so it doesn't really matter which rod I use. I just need to make sure that my sections fit. Perm rod fits there. Got my wide area. Perm rod fits there. And what do I have to make sure at the very bottom?
It's like even.
So this way the back of my section doesn't fall lower than the front of my section. Now, a lot of times on a real person, it's not going to be as dramatic as it is on the mannequin, so that shouldn't be an issue, but just in case. I'm going to wrap this all up nice and tight. This center section covers the majority of the head, so this section needs to be perfect. If the sides are a little too skinny, we can deal with it with short rods. If the sides are a little bit too wide, we can adjust with our front sides. But the majority of the head is going to stem off of this center section. So we want this center section to be in the center of her head, perfectly aligned, so everything falls in place. Okay? So basically what we're doing is making a tic-tac-toe board. Where one section ends, the next section begins. So we're going to follow this line, and we're going to come straight down. Again, straight line on a round object is a slight curve. I'm going to go a little bit more precise with the tip of my comb. Hold your finger on the top. Come down, straight, straight, straight. Right at the occipital area, I'm going to start to curve. Comb this away. Just get this out of my way. Come right down here. Straight, straight, straight. Right at the occipital area, I'm going to start to curve. I'm going to do that again. And if you're lucky, like I said, this is going to be perfect the first time down. It's playing off of this, so if this one's right, this one's going to be right. So we're going to measure, come down a little bit, measure again, come down a little bit, measure again. Now I'm starting to get a little bit skinny, so I'm going to come in here, take a little bit more. Come down again, and where I'm going with this, I'm going to stop at the occipital, right before the nape area. So I'm getting a little skinny, and I'm going to look at my sections. Now, my sections kind of, as I'm measuring with my fingers, kind of look about even. So she's got a smaller head, so I'm good where I'm at. If I come down and I'm measuring here, and these are skinny, and these two sections are really wide, I need to take some of that off and move it to the center. Make sense? Okay? So I'm going to do this all the way down to the occipital, to right at the base of the occipital. And I'm going to cut it straight across. And this is going to be my center section. Nice, clean, and tight. And then from here, I've just got to connect the dots. So where one section ends, the next section begins. So I'm going to take point A and match it to point B. A straight line on a round object is a curve. So I'm going to come here. I'm going to put a slight diagonal on it and connect my dots. And I'm going to take my perm rod and I'm going to come underneath here. This is a little bit wide, so I have two options. I can move a little bit here or a little bit here. And since this is a little small, I'm just going to take off this edge. Measure it up. Connect. Where one ends, the next one begins. And this one I know is going to be a little wide, so I'm going to take some of this and go here. Take some of this. And come here. And it's always trial and error when we're doing this. It's based upon her hair and how she is. And then I have my 3 sections in the back. 1, 2, 3. And then all I need to do is go 1, flip away, 2, flip away, and there's my center.